Welcome back. This is The Poet is a Human with the philosopher Dunamis on this week's episode number 20. Pew, 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 pew. Fight for a talent. Please be sure to hit that like button on your way in. And if you like us, consider subscribing to keep up with our episodes on YouTube and give us a follow on X.
And Fightcast is here to empower individuals to live healthier, master finances, pursue their dreams, and inspire others through self awareness and global impact. This is for entertainment and educational purposes only, and not financial advice.
Dunamis, episode 20, man. How you feeling?
Oh man, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. It's great to get to episode 20, man. It feels like a really good accomplishment. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Episode 20 is awesome. It's a really dope milestone. It's really cool to say it. Everyone who's been tuning in with us, thank you for 20 weeks of excellence, coming in here week after week, getting with us on the reaction. And yeah, we've got some announcements for the reaction space as well. I feel great, bro. I've been having a lot of conversations with you, man, and a lot of great people, and I'm really excited for everything that's happening, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll definitely want to stay tuned because we have a giveaway to announce during this episode. We have, a lot of really cool stuff kind of coming up. And in our Fight Night React, we're no longer having an X space after this, but we will be in Discord live, both during the airing of this episode, which is pre-recorded, and but we will be there in Discord during the airing of this episode, as well as available for however long is needed, afterwards to as always have a town hall type of a setting. And we want to hear what you think about these things that we're talking about. Our community is really why we're doing this. This is a big part of our why, and so we want to know what you think. We want to know if this is helpful. We want to know what else you guys want to hear. So if there's something that we're talking about or not talking about that you'd like to hear, let us know. Jump into that space. So
Yes, but we're fighting for a talent this evening, folks, and Dunamis and I we talked throughout this week with talents and building our own talents, and we're having a conversation, again just throughout this week before we did our recording and stuff like that. We were just talking about some of some of the religious teachings with talents, and I would actually like for you to share that again, Dunamis, because I really think that that's a really cool way for us to really start digging into this and really start chomping away at talent and what it is.
absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's kind of interesting when you think about the word and how going back into the parable that Jesus taught on talents, the parable of the talents. And the I don't know if the correct word is etymology, but the etymology, I think, of the word basically originally has to do with a weight or a currency, a weight in gold. So what we're talking about when we say talent, if you go back to biblical text, the word shares its root with a a value in gold. The way the parable goes, the master gives to some of his servants different amounts of gold as he's going away on a journey. And while he's away, he wants these three servants to take care of his money for him, go and earn additional money and be profitable with these talents of gold, right? As it goes, a couple of the servants do very well with the talents that they're given. They invest and trade and more or less double what they were given by the time the master receives. And the one servant who's considered wicked in the story hid his talent. He took the because he was given less than the other two, and whether a combination of being ashamed of the small talent that he received, as well as being afraid of maybe what would happen if he made a mistake, or lost the money of his master, he just went and hid it, and did nothing with it. And so that in this story is, he's considered a wicked servant. And I think the analogy that we can take from that, there's a lot, there's so much that you can unpack from this story. I mean, I could probably preach 3 sermons on that story, on that parable. But for the sake of what we're talking about today here, is just that it's not a good thing to take that spark, that divine spark that God has put inside of you, and to take it to the way we use the word talent today. They're very similar because we all have skills and talents, things that we're good at doing, things where places where we can bring value to society in some way, shape, or form. And that is all because there are inherent gifts that have been given to us. Now, if we hide those gifts, if we don't use those gifts because we feel ashamed, or we don't have that self-love, we don't feel like what we have is good, that is not a good thing.
I agree with you, and I feel that too with talent. There is a natural aptitude that comes with that, and I feel like there are certain things that, like you said, we inherently possess, that are within us that we can hone over time. We're- And it's really, I love this. I love this segment too because it also ties into everything else. When you talk about community and you talk about purpose, and you tie all of those things together. And when you were speaking about the parables of the talents as well, and you talked about the one who had the talent and buried it instead of it, instead of exposing that talent, because your community can be an influence in that, and how you spread this talent and how that seed gets nurtured, or if it doesn't. But there's definitely a discipline that comes with those talents. You have to be able to hone those skills that I spoke of here just a second ago, and to build off of that.
Well, I think I remember hearing at one point in time it was 10,000 hours
Yeah, ten
is the
thousand
amount of
hours.
time for mastery, right, of a
Yeah.
skill.
Hmm.
So once you've gone through those 10,000 hours, maybe you can skip practice every now and then. But
It's different kinds of practices now.
yeah, man, when you talk about having these multiple talents, one of the things that I've learned getting older, one of the benefits I think of getting older and having gone through a series of little mini careers, you could say, although I don't know if pumping gasoline really counts, but you know,
It
um,
does.
you learn how to, I learned how to make change really well when
Ex-
I had that job.
hmm.
So, I learned how to count backwards from 20, really
Right.
well. But that's all of these things that you pick up in life. The great thing about them is they're cumulative. You don't
Mm.
lose a lot of these talents. They say it's like riding a bike is a great example of it. And I can tell you that in my many years, I could say over 20 years ago, I went to recording engineering school in Ohio and learned how
Hey.
to record music, and do a lot of that kind of stuff. I went and had an internship at Planet Dallas Recording Studios in Dallas, Texas, for a short period of time, and I've spent time doing, recording music. I recorded an album about the year 2000, and then I had a different period of time in my life where I did other things, and then
Hmm.
I went back to school and I learned how to program. And so now, and then I made a lot of money with the programming. But what's crazy is I'm even now in another transitional period of my life where I'm finding joy in other things now, and I want to continue to learn and grow in those other things. But I will still use those talents that I acquired many, many years ago in future ventures.
Hmm.
So I would say to young people now, don't even look at school as being where you're going to learn everything. I mean, your talents throughout life should be like a toolkit, like a Swiss Army knife that you're just going to add to and add to and add to. The more that you go, you should always be adding skills to your toolkit, and it's just going to make you a more dangerous person. And that's what you should be.
Most definitely, man. And I'm looking at it through a lens of music for me. Just looking at like what you were saying, because I was thinking about jobs, and music is that's always been the number one consistent thing of me just writing as a kid, getting older, listening more, and then writing, and then putting things with beats, recording, understanding the positioning, fluctuations of your tone, and putting in those hours, those 10,000 hours, and then getting into the production of it, and just the overtime, of it, and just the expansion of it. It's looking at all of those things now, like it's definitely all of those things have like shaped and prepared, and all of the music that I've listened to, and really all of the times where I wasn't making music at all, and I was able to just hear, and I was able to just clarify my thoughts. I think about my life too, man, because I was not what I was doing with music. I was doing kind of just some of the, I don't even want to say the opposite things, because it always gave me some really interesting things to talk about. But I've worked in the auto mechanic world for several years, man. It was a big part of my life was that, and I worked in the corrections facility with the for the juveniles, our troubled youth, our aspiring youth. We'll try to use a better word, our aspiring youth, that had some provisions. Yeah, man, and just all of those experiences and how all of that shaped. Man, wow! Just to get to episode 20.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to the mechanic. Like when you were doing that, what what did you like about it? What brought you joy and what didn't you like about it?
What I really loved about the automotive industry was being able to talk to the people and being able to simplify what's going on with their car. Because that's the biggest fear. A lot of people, and especially older people, will come in, and it'll either be, older women that'll come in and their husbands took care of the car and they didn't really know a whole lot about it. And they spent this much, that much. And just to be able to break it down and give them an honest report of the 32-point inspection, and tell them when these things are due, and when these things generally should get done, and what to look out for. And I really believed in the product because it was somebody's car. It was a missile to me. And not only that, I would be on the road as well. And I'm on the road with you, and we're in the same town, city.
Mhm.
Something happens to your car, I know where you're coming back to, but if something happens where we're in this accident or whatever. So these are all of the things that I factor into, and their kids, and so many things. So, I didn't play around with this car. And that was a trust that I had to build also with my mechanics, and trusting that they're going to do thorough inspections, and they're going to be honest with me, and they're not going to oversell or anything like that. We've got to come to an agreement. Are these suggestions? Are these recommendations? So really building a solid language in that, and then explaining that to the customer. This is a suggestion. You've got about 500 to 1,000 miles left on your brakes. If you want to take your trip to Cincinnati, because you live in here in Ohio, you could absolutely do that. However, if you wanted to drive to Idaho, I would suggest maybe you get your brakes done now, or I would recommend you get your brakes done now,
Yeah.
type of deal. And then obviously the things that were just people syncing. I think that there's
Mhm.
always a synchronicity in any industry, or something that can be improved in that synchronicity, because you've got a lot of people that come in with a lot of different ways to fixing a car, and it's just the quality control needed to be more cohesive in that space. We all needed to just find a common denominator, and sometimes, it just took us a little bit more time to get to that common denominator. But ultimately, the automotive industry is where that was my last job. My,
Mhm.
which is really cool to say, man. That was my last job, getting up and going to work for somebody else.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean,
I'm not Oprah. I'm not Oprah, but it's cool.
definitely. Well, so much of what we're talking about tonight with the talent, it can be applied in a job situation. It could be applied in a career situation, but it can also be applied in an entrepreneurial or solo type of a situation. When I was getting into programming, a lot of what I would read articles that would talk about freelancing. You could go freelance and pick up clients and do the work, for them directly. I did a little bit of that, f- and we've talked offline about how I did that for a short period of time. It didn't end up being as worthwhile financially as it was for me to go and get a job as a
Hmm.
programmer. Just made a lot more sense for me financially. But yeah, I think that having those skills, music or whatever it is it's cool that it can be applied without having to go and work for somebody necessarily.
Yeah.
That's
Who? Yeah. That's yeah, all right. Well, then what do you want to do? I want to start my own business. Okay, cool.
yeah.
Do that. Like, all right, well, what kind of business do you want to do? And formulate the plot. It's okay. And I think that we also need to maybe get away from the word job too, in that space. And before I go too deep into this, I don't want you guys to think that I'm just, here at home hugging trees, which, sometimes I do hug trees. But I'm not coming at it from a from a quote unquote tree hugging position. I just feel that when you want something and you want to build this, I mean, how is that any different than you just making a decision that you want to go get a job? You've made a decision that you want to go get a job. You've made a decision that you're willing to work these hours to do this for X, Y, and Z amount of dollars. So I was watching a video about it. Somebody gets a job and it's like the instant, and it's not instant in the sense of you instantly get paid, but you instantly have a job, you instantly have an income and steady and that kind of deal. And there's that uncertainty that a lot of people feel when they're starting a business. There's not a whole lot of capital that's being start with it. You're going to have to do a lot of things for free. You've got to build relationships, so on and so forth. There's the profit is still there. The profit can still be there too. But people would say you got to put in more work. But I don't think that it's any more work than you motivating yourself to go work for somebody else. I think if anything, it's more motivating to go work for yourself.
Yeah. It's I'm sort of feeling that here recently, but I'm not in a position right now yet to be able to sustain myself at least enough to cover bills and whatnot.
Hmm.
How hard is that? I mean, for yourself,
Yeah.
I don't you don't necessarily need to get too personal with it, but how can one make that transition if you're used to having a paycheck and then wanting to produce something and start to bring that income in, making that, that transition into making that a full-time thing? Like, how hard is that? And what does that take?
That's a really good question. And everybody's situation is different from what kind of bills, what are your immediates. I had to ask myself what were my needs. And there was something that I'd also seen too that said, everything is important until you get sick. Then the only thing that's important is your health. So I had to ask myself, what are things that are going to be important for my health? So I instantly looked at my eating habits. That was the first thing that I looked at. I looked at my eating habits. Okay, what am I spending on groceries? And I can cut that down. Okay, cool. So I personally, and I will say this, I have cut down my grocery spending, and I'm very proud of myself. Shout out to Emoto Robo. She was the one that actually inspired me because she like spends nothing at the grocery store and yet gets everything that she needs. She's incredible. I cut down my grocery shopping. I spent $250 the one time that I went grocery shopping. I spent $70 last week on groceries, and it was everything that I needed.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome, man.
it was cool. And then I have subscriptions. Like again, everybody's bills are different. So so it's like I don't want to sit here and say that I genuinely don't have maybe as many bills. Like, do I have debt? Yeah, for sure. But it's also not. So I used to be the person that would just let debt hang on me. There are just things that like, dude, it hasn't been paid yet for a reason. Okay. I'm not saying that it's not going to get paid, but it's going to get paid when it gets paid, you know, and that's something that my grandma's told me. But that's not a reason for me to sit here and be like, well, I can't do this because I'm, you know, in this kind of debt and that kind of debt. And if anything, those are my debts that I owe to God. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna get those right. You know what I mean? And but I know what I have to do in order for those things to happen. But you know, all of my music, you know, the things that I use, my plugins, and just making sure that my subscriptions are current because again, my talent is music. I'm invested in my music, so those are things that I have to, you know, that I'm putting to be as efficient as possible in music. So yeah, that was the big thing was you know, the what I was eating, and yeah, all the extra stuff too. Like, if, were there any subscriptions that like anything TV wise? You know, like what am I watching? I don't really watch TV a whole lot. You know,
Mhm.
TV's off usually most of the day. What have you been eating lately, man?
I'm mostly eating everything that the government told us not to eat. So if it's animal fat, if it's butter, if it's if it's red meat, I love avocados. That's a really great healthy fat too.
So
So
good.
like I love fats and proteins. I am trying to stay fairly low carb, although the great thing about carbs is you can there's the starch resistant carb thing where you can take rice and cook it and then stick it in the fridge or the freezer, and then you break it out the next day and cook it again, and it does not
Mm,
act in your body the same way as a carb normally would. So
very cool.
there's really cool tricks you can do with carbs too. But I mean, I eat a lot of beef stew also. I love beef stew,
Mm, mm.
potatoes and carrots and celery and all that. Yeah.
Dude, very nice. Yeah, I've not been doing the carnivore diet. I do a lot of fasting, y'all. I do smoothie fastings. So I'm really big into green smoothies, you know, ginger. I really do love ginger, cayenne pepper, turmeric, inflammation. I get my workout on. I'm pushing myself up now to 2 workouts a day. You know, they say the greats wake up early in the morning. So I have been waking up a little earlier, just with the music schedule. Sometimes that I wouldn't say it doesn't necessarily allow me to wake up at 5 because I'm usually up till about maybe 3 or 4, and then I'll sleep for you know maybe 3 or 4 hours or so. So 9 o'clock, and you know enjoy my slow morning. But when I do eat, I usually go with you know I go with fruits. I do like a good steak every once in a while. I definitely make sure I get my eggs in me, you know, no questions asked. You know, I usually am pretty minimal. I like my tuna. I mix it with avocado. I think I was telling Dunamis, frick, man, what I make the other day. And I've been laying low on the carbs. I'm just you know working on just cutting it out a little bit more every once in a while, you know, but I definitely feel a difference when I don't eat carbs versus when I do eat carbs. You know, my friend gives me a lot of crap because like I'll eat like one thing of naan bread and dip it in some hummus, and then I'll be like, "Oh, dude, it was that freaking naan bread that got me, dude. This is why I've got this pooch. This is it. It was because of the naan bread." Um, she's like, "Yo, shut up! Get the frick out of my face, dude. What is wrong with you?" Um, but yeah, but like tuna, avocado, eggs, cheese. Like I'll do like the burnt cheese, and I'll melt that. Really big into bananas, and peanut butter and honey. I love me some honey. Honey's
Mhm.
probably the more expensive thing that I buy when I go to the grocery store. I think that my bill would cut down at least by $10 for sure. You know, but you know, I can't just get this regular honey. You know what I mean? You got
You
to
got to
get
get
some
that
good. Yeah,
local raw honey. You know.
yeah,
That
get
would
that
you,
local raw. We got a beekeeper. We're friends with a beekeeper out here, and we got some local honey. Summertime rolls around, we'll start messing around with that, and start using that wax for some other health properties because that beeswax is really nice for you. Shout out to Burt's Bees.
oh man, I love Burt's Bees.
Me too.
That's
I need
good
a
stuff.
sponsorship, baby. Come on.
All right. Well, sorry to interrupt right now in the middle of what we were talking about, but we said in the middle of this podcast we were going to talk about a giveaway. And
Public service announcement.
public service announcement. What we need is, I don't know, man. What should we make them do? What should we make them do?
Ooh, oh man.
Do they
I
need to
don't know.
comment something?
Yeah, they definitely need to comment. We need to get that. We need to get that engagement.
Yeah.
Comment. What do you think, Dudamus? I know they need to. I know they need to comment. What should they comment?
They should comment. Let's see. Let us know what your favorite musical genre is in the comments. Tell us your favorite musical genre. If you're on X, you can leave the comment on X underneath the post. If you're on YouTube, you can leave the comment underneath the video. Tell us your favorite musical genre. And with that, an NFT, the winner, will also leave your ADA handle, a Cardano address or ADA handle in the comment, and the winner will receive NFT of Crime Fighters Drip Drops, which was
Ooh.
which is a season 1 NFT from Six City. It is rare. It is definitely worthwhile. We will give that away. We're gonna randomly pick somebody who leaves a comment with the comments that we receive at episode number 23.
Ooh. Let's go. I like it. This concludes our PSA.
Well, to bring the food thing back around to talent, and I do think that for myself and maybe for I really think that both of us have a love for food, man. Both of us have had this. I could tell that the weekend that we met and we hung out, I felt like you had these fancy mushrooms and things going on, and we both were in the kitchen, and naturally were the two people in the group that were cooking, and we were making food for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think there's talent in that. And a big part of this is, you start with action. You start by doing something and you just discover what you love. You figure out, wow, this was really fun. I enjoyed that. I really loved making food. I enjoyed the look on everyone's face when they tasted it and they liked it and they enjoyed it. It made me feel good. And if that's you, maybe that's your talent. Maybe it's something different. In fact, in most cases, it's going to be, because not everybody's going to be like a chef, right?
Sure.
But I do find that throughout my life, I've connected with different things. I've connected with music. I've connected with gardening. I've connected with animals. Would love to, you know. I know it might sound harsh to some people, the idea that I want to raise animals to slaughter them, but it's a big part of yeah, it's a big part of Oh, yeah, it's really more about the idea that if I'm gonna be a carnivore, if I'm gonna eat animals, I definitely don't want to put that responsibility of who is gonna take good care of the animal and slaughter an animal humanely, and I can't just put that responsibility and on someone else and say I don't care about that, and I don't want to know how that happens. I think that's small to be that way. So I have to look at it like, if I'm going to take an animal's life, I want to make sure that animal enjoys a good life. I want to make sure that animal is cared for, and and then when the animal leaves this gives up the ghost, it's quick, and painless. And I'll tell you what, I believe that food is better tasting than food where an animal died in distress. There's a big difference there, and I believe that, and I want that to be a part of my life.
Yeah, dude, you're hitting something there, and I believe a lot of the elders of the day, would say things about that too, because animals have souls. So when you eat these, when you eat these meats, you're essentially eating like the last thing, so if this was like a tortured soul because they got slaughtered, you know what I mean, you're like taking in that, like, from a spiritual sense. I know it gets esoteric, y'all. But just even when you're thinking about certain chickens that you eat, because dying is a part of life for sure, and
Hmm.
there are natural ways to die, and then there's just ways where it's just like, man, why would you do that, and we fight for food. You need to go listen to that one. Yeah, for sure. And farming. um but yeah, just all of that too, and just knowing where that comes from. And it's like, like I said, there's certain things that I like, so I like Wagyu steaks, man, because I feel like those are fine farms, and I feel like the Japanese did, they do a good job because of, I wouldn't say the rarity of it necessarily, but just the talent that it takes to breed these cows and to make sure that it's in the most natural way possible. And when you taste these steaks, you can just taste the life that that these cows had, and it's marvelous. It's marvelous. They lived a great life. They
Hmm.
really did, man. So there's being conscious of all of those things, because all of that to wrap around, like, that ties into the mental state too. When you're eating these processed foods and all of this, I know this is kind of going from talent to that, but it's, it all circles back around, when you go, because all of that affects your mental and just your ability to think clear and to make calculated decisions and to be the best person that you can be when you're making these moves, when you're clouding your judgment with all that. But that's, again, that was the first thing that I looked at was, what's clouding my judgment. And it's like, obviously, what I'm taking in my body and what I'm taking in with my mind and putting all of that together, like, I need to declutter this. I need to unsubscribe to things, and I'm not saying that the minimalist life is for everybody in the sense of not having a lot of material things, but the minimalist mindset is something I feel that is imperative for all of us, because we already focus on a lot of things that aren't even our own thoughts.
And
And
things that we can't control.
right. And the Serenity Prayer always said, change the things I can't accept and accept the things that I can't change.
Yeah.
I feel like we spend too much time on the other side. The Libra scale of humanity ain't always weighing out, y'all. um, but yeah, just wrapping that back into your talent, just having a clear mindset with it and being definitive. And as an artist, I feel that sometimes can be a little tough because you just have so many different ways that you want your art to be expressed. And that was something too, when you're running your own gig, or it's just setting a schedule and being disciplined and following that schedule, knowing that I'm going to get so many posts out throughout the day, realizing your role as a content creator, as an independent artist, and the obligations that you have with that. Your music is the product, or your art is your product. All right, so you're selling your product every day, and having that mentality of knowing that if you don't put this out, then it's just not going to be seen, and nobody else is going to do it for you. That is the benefit of being an independent artist, and sometimes the crux of being an independent artist, because you forget that aspect of it. And even as a collective in our group, we're building independent artists to just continue to be independent. So even in this moment with us, you grab an opportunity to build your own brand and build your own business. We're preparing you for that. You get a deal. We're preparing you for that. We're preparing you to have leverage with that deal, because you come in with a fan base and you come in with a certain amount of income, and what can you do for me? Like, that type of deal. But all of that being said, we have those structures built up, but you also, as an artist, have to reach certain milestones, because you can't be talking about a record deal if you haven't even put a song out. So there's levels to that. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of discipline that comes with that independency. And that's where I feel a lot of people will sit on a talent. They'll sit on it for very long. They'll bury it, and
Hmm.
they'll tell people that they make music, and they'll give them a little bit here and there, but then they'll give them this long-winded esoteric thing. But in reality, where can I find your stuff is where that funnel ends at. Is, can I find you on SoundCloud? Can I find you on YouTube? What's your newest project? This and that and the third. You've got to have something for you.
Like, talent doesn't just come one day. You don't just snap your fingers and have talent. Like, you have to put in the work to really get it and have it. And so whether it's music or whether it's growing food or whether you're an athlete and you're working out, there's or whether you're an artist in other ways, the thing that we also have to recognize now, and we've already had the AI episode, but we're not just competing against each other anymore. Like, we're competing against artificial intelligence as well. And I think this is a good moment in time for us all as humans to ask what it is that makes us being humans special. What is it that we can do that a robot can't do? What is it that we can do, or what is it that makes us special and unique? And in that question and in the answer to that question, very often you're going to be finding your purpose and what you're good at and what your talent is. So, but sometimes it takes some trial and error, because you might think that you're going to be a really good baseball player and you go out and maybe you're not. Maybe there's a lot of people that are a lot better at you
Yeah.
than at that, but you're never going to know unless you do it.
Exactly. And I want to say this too. I feel that we do, again, I do feel like that that we can be naturally talented at things like, Johnny's really good at running, with a little bit of form exercising and, a little bit of training, he can develop this as a skill, a skill set. He has a skill set in running, and I think that, we come with these raw talents. We come with these very like, oh, he can play a little bit of Beethoven, but with a few music lessons he can hone that as a skill and really really dissect his fingers or her fingers. But it's just looking into those things that we kind of suppress as adults because for whatever reason we always try to stunt the inner child inside of us because of what I guess we see as reality. But the reality is, stop killing your inner child. Um, but think about the things that you always wanted to do as a kid, and the things that just were the most outlandish, that like the craziest dream you ever had as a kid. And think about why you had that dream and what that means to you now, and how you can interpret that and what you can turn that into. That side project that you were thinking about doing, do it. The hobby that you have, do it more. The just whatever it is. And everyone's got a reason for why they don't do things, but not enough people have reasons for why they do things. So let's shift our mindset in that aspect of why, instead of why aren't you, why don't you do it more? Like you should just do it more.
That reminds me too of a sermon that I heard preached many many years ago, and definitely not no reason to go through the whole gist of the message, but the idea that oftentimes we look at what we're not good at and we try really hard to fix those things,
Mm,
when
mm,
when instead we could just look at what it is we're really good at and work even harder at that. And that's where our uniqueness is. That's where our strength is. And so rather than looking at the places that we're weak and trying to improve the weak areas so that we're just average at everything, look at those things that you really enjoy, that you're really good at, and build those muscles up. And you're going to far surpass so many others. You
right.
might not be the best at it, but you're going to be better than just about everybody around you. You
Yep.
know,
100%. And there's always something to be learned. There's always a Rick Rubin out there that's just laying on his couch with his feet crossed, and he's just got so much wisdom just waiting for you. And all of that information is there, as long as you're willing to accept it. Yeah, what did I say? In order to become a master, you got to submit to a master.
hmm Oh yeah, yeah.
Pen.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, man. But
Well,
yeah,
what
just think, yeah, go ahead.
I just want to ask, what are your thoughts for when I think of talent, so many times I think of young people, just
Hmm.
because if you're as old as me, you generally have a good idea of what you're good at, what you're not good at in a lot of areas. Not that those things can't be improved upon, because they always can. I think we should always be learning. But what do you think? We've had discussions about trade schools before,
Hmm.
but what do you think that is the best approach, or what would you suggest for somebody who isn't quite sure what they want to do or what they want to be? I mean, should they go to a community college and start to just do the general liberal arts? I've actually heard that advice given a lot, is just to go to a community college and not choose a major, take your general courses and sort of discover what you like. But I know trade schools out there, and it's quite a bit more focused. If you're not quite sure what you want to do, is trade school a bad idea?
Trade school is not a bad idea. And I'm going to be frank with you. I think that it's a waste of time for someone to go to school and or college nonetheless, and take general education classes that we've already taken for so many freaking years, because you're just doing the exact same thing. You're putting a bunch of information in us to regurgitate it to pass a test. That's and what you're wasting money. Why am I wasting 90,000 or $60,000 to take a course that I've already taken for 12 years? Like, I'm not that doesn't make sense to me at all. It's a waste of money completely. Get into something, like, if you don't know what you're doing, then we need to have options, and we need to have those entrepreneur classes. We need to have those guys that have been working on cars with their dad since they were 6 years old. Like, if they want to get out in that field and they want to get better at that and get those certifications so they can go to a dealership and make, better money. And I'm nothing against mom and pop shops, but just like, and not saying that they're not reputable, but even getting into those reputable companies, let me say that, getting into those reputable companies where they have that tenure in it. Oh yeah, dude, I went to this trade school and I did this, I shadowed this master mechanic at this dealership, and now they have this apprenticeship there at the dealership, boom boom blase, skipping the third. People that want Sally, who wants to start her own beauty salon but doesn't know about LLCs and doesn't know about the licenses that are needed to be obtained. Somebody wants to do a food truck. People want to start an Etsy account, whatever it may be, music, those types of things. Like, all of those things are important, because these kids, this generation, has so much access to this technology. We've already got kids that are 20 something years old, 18 years old now, that are making viral TikToks, 1.2 million views. And I just acquired monetization off of music from TikTok. And these kids have already been making money this entire time off of this stuff, off of YouTube shorts and whatnot. And we need to stop making it seem like it's hard, because it's really not. Because the difference between these kids and the people that are talking about it are the kids are doing it, and there are people that are just talking about it. That's why it always seems hard. But it, DJ Deflord is a perfect example of this. A really great friend of mine, on and off the music, but he's somebody who came into this music world and said he was going to do it his way. And he posted so much that he broke the algorithm, and he broke through consistency. He
Let's
prompted the
let's
yeah,
pause let's pause on that for a second, just while you're
yeah,
talking about that, because before we move on, I want to just really emphasize and get back to the fact that they are doing it and they're
yes,
successful, and others are not doing it and therefore are not being successful. That's really
right,
the only difference. And
yes.
audience, you have to hear this, because the only reason you're hearing this is because we're doing this. It's
Mm.
really that simple. All you have to do is start doing it. and it's either going to work out or it's not. Same thing with this podcast. We don't have a whole lot of subscribers yet, but I love doing this. I love doing this every week, and I want to continue doing it, you know? So
Real. Ooh, deep.
it's just you start doing something and you're either going to love it or you're not. And you're either going to be good at it or you're not. And guess what? Even if you're not good at it, you're going to get better. So you just do it, man. Just get started. And I didn't mean to jump in,
No,
but
I'm
man,
glad you did.
yeah.
Because I even I wanna shed light on that too, because we think too much about the all the money that we can get. And we get trapped in that thought of all the money we could get, just to get back to the point of, well, we don't have any money now. And that's where that I feel stunts a lot of people's growth, because they want that instant money. If it's instant like that, man, it wasn't meant to be anyway. It's like taking out a quick loan, and I have taken out a quick loan with a freaking 30, 45 APR. You take out, this, and then you end up paying double that. It's not as good as it seems. It seems good in that moment. It's instant. It makes you happy until it's gone. And life doesn't work like that. Anything that's worth having, you got to put in the work to do it. Point blank, period, man. If you want to get to work, guess what you got to do? You got to get to work.
And there's a period of time. This is the other thing along those lines. I don't lift weights, so I can't tell you, but I think it's the same. But I can tell you with a lot of things, with investing, it's definitely this way. And whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to have to not only work, but there's going to be a period of time where you've got to work hard and you're not going to see any results. There's that period of time where it feels like you're working for nothing, and you have to
Mhm.
fight through that. And once you get through that, the word that I've heard, the phrase, it's used in reference to atomic decay, but I've heard it used in reference to a lot of things, but it's a little, a little, a little, a little, and then all at once.
Mhm.
And and that, I feel like, is a lot of things in life. It's like you're going to work at it, you're going to work at it, you're going to see nothing, and then one day, and to the rest of the world it seems like they were an overnight success, that just one day these people came out of nowhere, but they didn't see the 10 years before that these people were struggling, working hard, and not seeing results. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So success can happen in an instant, but it never happens instantly. You have to work at it for a long time. It might happen suddenly, but it will happen suddenly after you put in years of work.
Right. I just started my workout journey, and I'm also here to, with the workout journey too. Y'all don't even need weights. That was another thing too. It's like, do I buy these dumbbells? Do I not buy these dumbbells? Man, I have found some incredible calisthenics workouts that are perfect for just the overall functionality of the body, and very core based and everything, just from a mobility standpoint. I feel like I know my body better. I can, even with what I'm eating too, I can just tell things that are hitting certain parts of my body that, because of the things that I ate for those benefits. I know I'm being conscious about that stuff, and it opens you up, man. It really opens you up, and you really do start to feel the circadian rhythm within you, for certain things. Especially with fasting. Fasting has helped me out a lot as far as discipline goes. Not that I wanted to eat all the time. That's never been my thing. Anyway, I've always done some intermittent fasting, but it channels you in. It channels you in. And
Mhm.
I feel a lot more locked in because I'm disciplining my body of here where I'm at. I know I'm not hungry. I know I'm not going to die. I'm like, let's get this done. Let's get this done. And even my relationships with, my friends and Dunamis will tell you, sometimes I'll be like, all right, so what's the solution? Like, what's the solution with that? And there's, And shout out to Mr. E. I feel like everything's always an equation of some sort because there's always a solution. Whether the solution is like, I just don't have the answer for that, that is a simple solution too.
Mhm.
But all of that being said, it's definitely just spending time in silence and whatnot has really put me to in that position to really fine tune the pen and the music and really just saying, okay, I'm here with this ability and these words. How do I shape how can I shape these and not and continue to challenge myself and push myself, all the while putting this content out. It's like, okay, if I'm gonna go into record mode, this is what I'm gonna do. If I'm gonna go into content mode, this is what I'm gonna do. And just not falling short of that. We all have a million ideas. Just do one, start
Yeah.
with one. That's always the hardest
That's my
thing. Start
that's
with
my
one
problem.
thing.
I like to experiment. That's my thing, and I'll always, especially with the fermentation thing here recently, man. It's like I'll start one, and then I'll start another, and then I'll start another, and then I'll start another, and it's like I got to remember to go back to those first ones and finish the job, and that's always been a difficult thing for me. It's good now. I think that I'm aware of it, but that's something I always have to work. That's something I always have to struggle at. It's never hard for me to start a project. It's usually difficult for me to finish a project.
Mhm.
So I need to. I think I probably need to have people around me that help to spur me on with existing projects, and but that is a skill that I want to hone is the ability to carry something through to completion.
Yeah, for sure. That's always been my thing, man. I sat around the other night before I did the content and I was looking back at some of my throwback catalog and there was that thought of, well, what if people don't like it or you've already released it? And then I was like, dude, your new audience hasn't heard this.
There
They
you
haven't
go.
heard this. I'm like, this is new to them. I'm like, and bruh, like, man, if you don't just put that out right now, like I went there and it's just like, wow, 14, 15 years worth of songs that I have that I've released in some shape or form that can just be re-released now. It's just like, man, I just didn't have that kind of exposure back then. There were some, but now it's just like, dude, throw that back out there. Do the re-release, do the remasters, do all of that stuff. Because even that, from that standpoint, I know that while those things are circulating again, I'm just over here recording.
Mhm.
And then I'm just gonna, drop the album, drop the EP, drop this and that and the third, and there's just music circulating forever. And it's all I ever wanted to do is just be in your life for the rest of the time. That's how do I do that? Even when I'm not around. But I know I've talked about music a lot. Obviously, that's what I do. But just
It's a great talent to have, man. That is a great talent to have.
it's and it's quite a responsibility. It is a responsibility because music does make the world go round. And just knowing that you have that talent where you have a stage, you have a platform where you can say anything that you want, and the things that you say can impact people's lives for the better or can really push them in another direction.
Yeah.
It's a really big thing. And it's like, how do I not come off too preachy either? And no disrespect to my preachers, but I'm not a preacher,
Yeah.
and I'm also not your savior either, and this shout out to Kendrick Lamar on that. I'm not your savior either. I'm here to talk about things that I've experienced, and these are the things that I've learned, and these are lessons that I took away from that, and that these are things that you resonate with. Then I hope that these words guide you in your journey as well. So, how do I say F that crap, but at the same time saying, love is everything?
Yeah.
Those are, yeah. So there is a level of thought that goes into that stuff for sure, and even on certain social media platforms, I've got certain places where I can, and certain people that I can talk to and, kind of let those things fly a little bit more. But, them and myself, we both know at the end of the day, it just can't be like that. Everybody has that reality that it just can't be like that, but it's also healthy to express those emotions so you don't sit on them. And it's just a moment, it's a storm, it'll pass. So that's how I like to approach my music, is as if the storm has already passed.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Definitely, I love that.
Yeah,
The-
I just came up with that. Damn, I'm pretty impressed too.
yeah, man.
Oh man,
Wow.
dude, I
I,
enjoy
th-
it, man. I love it, man. I love this. 20
I
weeks of this, dude. Ah, it's great.
we're gonna do. We got the Tim Duncan episode coming up next. I always love that number 21.
A
So, and yes, I am a Spurs fan. So I can't wait, man. We're gonna have to figure out what we're gonna talk about, but this has been great. This is good. I think that talent is an important thing for us to talk about because all of us need to be moving in a direction and taking action, and it needs to be beneficial for them. It needs to be beneficial for the whole, and it's just a good thing for us to be thinking about right now because a lot of people's purposes are shifting. I feel like I'm being pushed in a different direction. So I know it's happening to other people I know as well. So it's good, man. If you made it all the way here to the end, and the emoji that we want you to put in there is a drum. So drop a drum emoji in there if you made it to the end. And until next time, never give up the fight.
never give up the fight.
You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. Looking for change, looking for pain. Pulling a mob, pushing a train. I'll never stop, stick to a lane. Pick up the pieces and go rearrange. I'll be the best above all the rest, put me to the test and expect nothing less, you check as I'm chess, what's happening next, yeah. He got the venom, a tangible weapon, no coming in second. This life is a lesson, he got a new engine from pain, that's a blessing. New focus, no guessing, just bold and obsession, all in his possession. You got their attention, I'll leave an impression and take a redemption. Just kill, no discretion, your mind is a weapon. 11-11, it's time for progression, You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. People like sheep move feet, hurt it easy. You don't wanna be fast asleep when they're scheming. Better stand tall, ready for a fight, believe me. When they try the chains, you can say no, free me. So he's been looking for somebody who could save him, instead of searching inside for what they gave him. A strong will, strong mind causes mayhem. We could change the world, change times, rearrange them. Staying on pace, running the race. Life is a chase, I don't want a place, I wanna be first. Work till it hurts, dehydrated thirst till I'm in a hearse. High ambitions in the right mind can take you so far. It's like you lived a few lifetimes. Take off from a break off from the weak minds, they can stay soft. You can change lives, you create thoughts, never waste time. You got one shot, you got one life, better pop off. What do you like? Make a dream job. No 9-5, no mean boss, just my life and free thoughts. You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. People like sheep move feet, hurt it easy. You don't wanna be fast asleep when they're scheming. Better stand tall, ready for a fight, believe me.